Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is all about doing tables. As always, we're going to start with the learning objectives. So, create basic tables with a table, table row, table header, and table cell elements. Yep. Configure table sections with the T-head, T-body, and T-foot. Increase the accessibility of a table. Yep, we're definitely going to do that. Styling an HTML table with CSS. Oh yeah, big time. And then describe the purpose of the CSS structural pseudo-classes. Okay, so before we get started, let's talk kind of in a historical context. Years ago, before CSS was even invented, if you wanted to have like a two-column, have a banner going all the way across and then two columns and maybe a thing that goes across the bottom, you did it with tables. You actually set up an entire table that represented the structure of your web page. And that way, you put something in this cell and something in that cell. And, if you're familiar with how Microsoft Excel works, you can kind of stretch things around and kind of make them all line up. Well, that's what this was. It turned out to be extraordinarily complex to render, and quite frankly, it was a total disaster for performance. And so nobody uses tables anymore for doing page layout. That's a really, really big no-no. And an instant... if you were looking at somebody else's web page and you saw tables being used that way, that's an instant idea that this is old school. Somebody hasn't touched web programming in, 5-6 years. So this is old school stuff that we don't do anymore. Okay. So, to start with, let's just create us a table, right? So, no big deal. I go here to the table. To the body part. And, I start with a table attribute. It's not that complicated, right? Just a table. Now, to make a table come out, I need rows and columns. And so thankfully, they do some abbreviations here. So they have one called TR for table row, or row of things. And then, instead of having like columns, because they are columns, but they're called data, so it's TD, table data. A TD, or you could say that this is an individual cell. So I'm just going to say, red. And then go down here and give me another one of these guys. TD, 12. And another one of these guys, kumquat. Who cares if I spell it right or not? Dang, I did it the same way. Well, dang it. Okay, cool. So right now I have one row and 3 columns. If you want another row, well, you just put another row in there. All right. So I just do TR. Whoa. Can I start that over again? Okay, good. And I'm just going to copy this because I'm lazy. All right, so let's just take a look at this, see what it looks like. So I'm just going to render it in the browser the way we always do. And it should kind of line up. Ta-da! And it does. It lines up. Well, actually, you can't actually really even see that it lined up, but it's there. Okay. There's some attributes on page 373. There's a table 8.1. Now, I'll warn you that when you look at that table, the vast majority of those attributes are no longer valid in HTML5. Okay? One of them is... and that's the border. Now, it used to be the border was the border thickness. So if I go here and I say border, it used to be that you'd go in and you'd say, 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 5 pixels. Now it's kind of morphed to basically being on or off. That's it. Okay, so the choices, as you can tell by my little pull down there, the choices are 0 meaning off, and 1 meaning on. And that's it. There's no other choices. Okay, so let me render this one more time. And this will, I think, look kind of familiar. You get this double line looking thing that surrounds the entire thing. Okay, so now we have a table. Woohoo! Okay. So there's a couple of attributes in here which we'll use, but essentially the border one and the title are the only real ones that we actually really need. There's another one called caption. Do you guys remember the figure in the fig caption? Remember that guy? Well, it's the same thing here. I can go in here to this and do a caption. And the caption, of course, is going to be whatever, just like we did with figure, it's going to be attached. So whenever this thing moves around, it's going to stick with it wherever it goes. So I'm going to say this is my test table. Okay, so that's a caption to this guy. Oddly enough, well, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. The caption tag has to be at the top, but it doesn't actually have to show up there. We'll show you some CSS magic that you can use to move it any place you want, but the tag itself is supposed to be up there at the top. So anyway, so it basically, just like the fig caption guy, it makes it glue those words, test table, gets glued to the table. So when the table moves, it moves. Kind of cool. Okay, on page 374, they show yet another table of all the attributes that are valid inside the table row. Okay, the TR guy. And guess what? None of those are valid. You know, which begs the question, why, Mr. Author of the book, or Ms. Author of the book, why are you showing me things that you don't want me to use? Wouldn't it make more sense to not tell me about things? Anyway, so none of those things are really valid anymore. Okay. The TD tag, that's the data, table data, or I sometimes call it the cell, you know, the table cell. Okay, so that is an implied column. Now, there's some attributes here. On table 8.3 on page 374, and some of these are actually useful. Hooray! The column span, we're going to do that. Headers, row span, and scope. So, a couple more things to show you, and then we're going to do some real cool CSS things. We're going to come back to those attributes in just a minute. First, I want to show you what a header would be. So the first row of a table could be slightly different. Instead of having TD, I'm going to use TH. TH meaning header. So this is going to be color. I'll tell you what. Let's make this example like a shopping cart. Okay, so hang on. So this would be like because I want this to kind of make a little bit of sense. Let's do item number, and then we'll do TH description, and then we'll do TH unit price, ooh, that's supposed to have been a TH, sorry, TH TH quantity. And let's throw in one more for the extended price. Okay, so this is going to be shopping cart. Okay, so my item number is going to be, so this is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. And my description is going to be, I don't know, red paint, 1 gallon. And the unit price is $12. And let's throw some more of these guys in. So this would be TD. The quantity is going to be 2. And so my extended price would be 24, right? TD 24. Hey, I want to... Okay, I'm not quite done, right? Because I've got... This guy has more columns than the other guy. So is that a violation? Is it somehow wrong to have an inappropriate number? Well, oddly enough, no. Okay? It just puts a blank hole out there. Kind of weird, huh? All right, so let's go back to this guy. So this one is going to be, I don't know, this is 2, 3, 4, and I need a plastic tarp. Plastic tarp, 1 yard. How about square yard? And let's see, it cost, I don't know, I'm trying to do something easy so I don't have to do any real math here. Cost me $1 per square yard. I need 40 of them. So therefore, I need $40 down here. Okay, let's just see if this looks right now. Okay, ta-da! All right, now that I got this thing a more useful example, you can see some difference in the styling for the header row. So the header row basically gets things in bold and they're centered. You can't actually tell they're centered, but on this one you can. So things are centered. Kind of cool. All right, so that's the TD command, or element rather. It acts like an ordinary row, you know, except the formatting in the data is different. That's all. Now, oddly enough, this TH kind of guy, I mean, you theoretically could use TH more than once, okay, in theory, but please don't. Most of the time you're talking about using the header only at the beginning, okay, not as a row someplace. Although it's not considered a violation if you didn't. I'm just telling you, other people coming up, looking at your stuff afterwards, would look at that and go, what on earth? So just don't do it. Okay, so that's how that thing works. So now we'll go back and talk about some of those attributes. There's one called spanning. Okay, you guys kind of sort of probably remember it in the Excel, if you ever played with Microsoft Excel. You could go in here and I could like combine two cells together and make them, you know, combine them together to have one giant thing, okay? Now in this particular scenario, I don't really have a reasonable way to do that, but
I could not find the answer to your question.
So I'm going to do this kind of weird. I'm going to combine these two things together. Okay, so inside this guy, I can do what's called a column span or a row span. Now this takes a little bit of thinking. A column span means it's going to go combine two columns together. So normally when you think columns, right, you're thinking vertical, right, up and down. But when I'm spanning columns, I'm going to make something that goes left to right. Okay, so although columns typically are thought of as being vertical, a column span is horizontal. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and say column span, and then I'm going to tell it how many. A column span of 2 would mean this. Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna comment this guy out because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. All right, let me run this and show you what I'm talking about. So what it did is it combined these two cells together. You've probably done this in Microsoft Excel, right? We've gone in and there's one that says, you know, combine, I believe it's called, and it combines and centers the text. That's essentially what we're talking about here. Okay, so it's nothing really different. It's just the technique you do it. And I'll admit the phrases that you do this on are a bit confusing because most people think columns mean vertical, but column spans are not vertical. They are horizontal. Hey, I've said that several times. Do you guys pick up on the hints, right? Like maybe that might be a test question or something about what direction a column span would go. Okay, so column span. Let's do a row span. So let's go here and I'm going to do row span equals 2. And I'm not even going to comment this guy out, all right? So let's just, well, I guess I really have to. I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to comment this guy out so that I have the right number of rows. And so now this guy is, so a row span makes things taller, okay? Kind of makes sense. Not in this particular context of this shopping cart, but you see the point. So row span and column span are all about merging cells together. And if I had more rows, I could say, you know, I want to combine, you know, 5 rows or 6 or however many you want. Cool? Okay, this is probably a good place to start for the 15-minute mark. We'll pick this thing up again in just a few.